Hi, my name is Abby. I'm an author and a reader, and I like to talk about books on this channel because reading is my favorite. And today I wanted to talk about one of my favorite books I have read this year. I love this book so much. I cannot believe that I had not heard of it before. I just found it in the library and then I had to buy a copy for myself because I love it. And that is Spinning Silver. And I absolutely have fallen in love with this book, and I wasn't planning to do a full review of it because I did mention this one in my video of fantasy recommendations that feel different from other fantasy books. I talked about like standalone fantasy books without romance and that just are more unique, and this was in it, but I loved it so much. I have to make a video just for this book because it's so good. So like I said, I picked this book up in the library just because of the cover. I saw the cover and I was like, oh my gosh, that looks beautiful. And when I read on the back that it was sort of like a Rumpelstiltskin retelling, I was like, okay, I'm hooked. I need to read this book. But it took me so much by surprise how much I loved it. I'll give you some premise and then I'm going to talk about everything I loved. So the premise is there's a girl named Miriam and she lives in this town with her father and her mother. Her father is a moneylender and he's lent a lot of money out to everybody in this town. But her father is also a really soft, like caring man, very generous. And so he doesn't really have the guts to demand payment back whenever people need to pay their debts. So the problem becomes they are not getting paid any of their money back. So her family is now destitute and they never have what they need. And Miriam goes through town and she sees all these people that are so full of themselves when they look at the moneylender because they're like, you know, they're proud that they never paid him back and they have everything they need. They're warm for the winter. They have clothes. Their houses are nice, everything. Whereas Miriam's family is just suffering in poverty. So one day, Miriam's mother gets sick and she's not getting better and they don't have what they need to take care of her. So Miriam decides, forget this. If my dad's not going to basically man up and do this, I'm going to do it. So she goes around and she starts demanding payment and she becomes the tax collector, basically. The not tax collector, but you know, she's going and demanding payment back for the money that they were lent. And everybody in town starts to hate her, but she does a really good job and she's making a lot of money back. She's then using that money to buy and sell goods and trade things and barter and doing all these things. And her family actually becomes sort of wealthy because of that. And she's able to take care of her mother and father. But her mother and father are disappointed because she has to sort of harden her heart to be able to stand up to these people and refuse their excuses and stand against all the name calling and the threats and everything to get this money back. And her parents are sort of heartbroken that she's become this kind of cold person because of that. And she doesn't understand this and it hurts her feelings because she's like, I'm taking care of you guys when you wouldn't take care of us. One day she yells, are you upset that you have a daughter that can turn silver to gold? Nearby this town, there's this road called the Sterric Road, and the Sterric are this people, they're fey creatures, which are basically like magical beings, magical elves almost is what I would sort of think of them as. But they are these magical creatures of winter and snow and ice, and they always come through human towns and cities, and they raid these cities and towns and destroy them without care or concern for anyone, just to steal all the humans' gold. And nobody knows why they want gold, but they do that all the time. When Miriam says, are you upset you have a daughter that can turn silver to gold? They overhear her somehow through the magic and everything because they're magical creatures. And so they start demanding and dropping off their silver and telling her to turn it into gold because they think that she has this magic power. And that's sort of where the Rumpelstiltskin idea comes into play. But from there, the story sort of unfolds. And we have other main characters too. There's Irina, it's her point of view, and she's the daughter of a duke, and she's in a totally different part of the city. And we have Wanda, who's a poor man's daughter, and her father is very abusive and not a good guy, and she has two brothers and they're just trying to survive, and she gets wrapped up into this, and all three of these different women get wrapped up into this one story in different ways, and they interact. Sometimes they're working together, sometimes against each other. There's found family aspects, there's all sorts of interesting interactions, awesome relationships, so many cool things happening in this book, and you can't help but fall in love with these characters. I love Miriam so much, and I love Wanda and her brother so much. There's just so much in this book that is so good, and it all connects so well, even though it feels like three totally different stories at times from these three characters. And there's other points of view too. Several of the characters get points of view throughout the story, and the author doesn't denote, like with a name or anything, when a point of view changes. You just sort of have a little marker that there's a new section starting. And she's really good at writing in different voices. I never really had trouble figuring out who was talking. It was kind of obvious, and I think she's excellent at being able to write different characters' voices and dropping subtle hints that don't feel like she's flat out saying like, oh, this is me, I'm talking. It's these ways of weaving in details from the story that let you know, oh, it's this character is talking now, or this character is talking. And I really enjoyed that aspect. It was really cool never really knowing who was going to be the point of view next. But we got you get such a full picture of the story because of all the different points of view. And I would say Miriam and Wanda are the main points of view, or Wanda and her brothers are the main points of view throughout the book. Irina is less so, but she's still a very important part of the story. But anyway, all that to say, the story itself is so good. I was hooked from start to finish, and the way the author writes the world building and the story itself draws you in so much, and it feels very real. The whole thing is so wintry, and the way she describes the ice and the snow and the cold and all these different things is so almost visceral that you can sort of imagine. Feels so real when you're reading, and it drew me in so much, and it's just I would lose hours because this book was so good, and I just could not be distracted from it. I loved it so much. I will say, before I continue on about stuff in the book, there's nothing explicit. There's no sexual content. There's nothing like that. But it is an adult book in terms of themes. The themes can be really heavy. Wanda's father is abusive. There's other things that are talked about or hinted at, or things that are just adult themes. So definitely go into it understanding that it's going to be a heavier book, but it's so worth it because the story itself is so good. And those things never overpower the story and the charming aspects and all the good parts of the story. And there's some really heartwarming parts, and there are things in this book that are good lessons and that are just make you want to hug these characters. It's so good. Now to talk about the book, aside from the premise, I loved the growth of all the characters. All the characters, the main characters, the three girls, had these different sort of arcs and growth. And they were all these women who were faced with really unfortunate circumstances in life, really difficult situations, painful situations. And they all had different strengths and sort of ways of approaching these situations, but they overcame them. And it was really, really beautiful to see and awesome to read. The way their arcs worked, they were all different, but also sort of parallel. And they came together in really interesting ways. So you've got themes of like fire and ice in this book, because hysteric are ice and cold, in winter. And that's sort of Miriam's thing that's going on. And then Irina, I won't say why, but there's this fire involved and heat and warmth, and they sort of clash, but they're also working together. And then you have Wanda and her brothers, and they're all just sort of in the middle trying to figure things out. And it's so interesting the way the characters' arcs intertwine and come together and also clash. And the way everything resolves is perfect. And the characters never feel like they're cheapened or like they're overpowered or anything like that you might hear about different stories like these. These characters felt solid all the way through. Very, very well written. And that made the story so much more enjoyable because by the end, you feel very satisfied with all these different arcs. One of the lines that Irina says by the end is one of my favorite things I've ever read. It was so good. And it's very rare that I feel so attached to so many different characters. And I'll admit, like some of them, Wanda I wasn't as attached to at the beginning, but the further on the book got, the more I absolutely fell in love with her character. Miriam I immediately loved. She's awesome. This book had a way of, it feels long. It feels like a very long book even though it's not. And not long in that it's boring. It feels long in that so much happens and you feel like you go on this huge journey and really get to know these characters. And it was so much fun to read. You know how everybody says, oh, I wish there were books where the parents were alive and good parents and not bad parents? Miriam's parents in this book are the real heroes, in my opinion. They are a constant thread throughout the book. And though we never get a point of view of Miriam's parents, and we never get, they're never the main focus of the story, they are constantly throughout the story interacting with these different people. And they are just constantly a sort of a picture of love and compassion. And her parents are consistent, no matter the hardships, no matter what's going on, they are consistently that picture of love and compassion throughout the book. And that really made this book for me. Miriam's mom especially was so warm and loving towards so many of the different characters, and seeing her impact on the different characters and on everyone in the story, with everything going on, you just see these two normal people who are doing their best to be generous and kind and loving and compassionate to everyone around them, and seeing their effect and the ways they touch the lives of all the characters is such a beautiful thing. It's something I so appreciated and made me fall in love with this story even more. And I often see so many people wishing we had more stories with good examples of good parents like that, and this book has that, and it's so refreshing to see, and it's so heartwarming, and just seriously it adds such a layer of a message to this book that's not shoved down your throat, and it's not in your face like preachy or anything. It's just that love and compassion that's constantly there and that is open to everyone. And one of the characters, Wanda, by the end, she's so moved by Miriam's mom and dad that she tells her brothers someday she wants to have a house where there's always food available and always warmth available for anyone who needs it, anyone who comes by, just like Miriam's parents treated everyone in the story. But I just love Miriam's parents and loved that whole aspect of it. It was so sweet. By the time I finished this book, I was actually so sad. I wanted to keep reading it. And I have not felt that way about a book in years. I can't remember the last time. Like, Anna Karenina was the first book I read this year that was like, this is one of my favorites, and it is my favorite classic. But by the time I finished it, I was ready to be finished, ready to move on. It felt complete. I was like, okay, I've read this story. I'm happy with this story. I'm done now. This book, I wanted to keep living in this world. I was sad that I finished this book, and I swear, like, several times the past couple weeks since I finished it, I've seen it on my shelf and be like, I miss Spinning Silver. Like, I wish I was still reading that book because it's so good, and I know without a doubt I'm probably going to reread this many, many times in the future. I don't think I've ever read a book that made me feel quite this way that this did, as far as just feeling so at home in this world and just wanting to stay in this world and loving the characters and these people and this world building. And that's another thing. The world building was done so well. The author never had these like long expository paragraphs where you just had this exposition and describing things. She wove everything in together so well because you had, characters thinking and working through, because it's in first person. So you have characters thinking through and working through what they're doing and talking and just making observations. And all the world building comes through that and through their own stories and their own experiences. And that was such a fantastic way to do the world building because you never even noticed you were getting exposition. It's just like part of the story, and it feels like you're learning and going through the story as you're seeing the world sort of unfold around you. And it drew me in so much. I was so hooked from this book from the very start. And there was never a part where I felt bored. There was not a single part where I felt it dragged. It really got me. This book was really good. I don't know what is in this book, but it really got me. It's so good. And that's something else too, is that there was never any confusing history of the world. It's a fantasy book, and that's the crazy thing to me. It is a fantasy book. It is completely standalone, but completely self-contained and has everything it needs to have. There's no fluff. There was nothing that needed to be trimmed out or cut out. I felt like it kept everything concise, kept everything exactly how it needed to be to tell this story really well. I don't see anything that could have been added or changed or taken out that would make this story better. I think the author did an excellent job containing it all in one story. And maybe some of these things don't matter to you if you're reading a book, but I guess because I think about these things because like I'm always trying to see what it is about books I love that authors do that I can try to implement in my own books. And like I read something like this and I think, oh my gosh, I will never be able to write something as amazing as that because it's just so good. And so I try to pick apart these little things that hopefully I could take away and learn from them. But I don't think I really paid attention to those things when I just read and wasn't writing. The pacing was really good too. It never slowed down. The different points of view kept jumping around and you got a really full picture of everything going on in the story. Sometimes I was actually surprised by the point of view she would pick for different scenes in the story, but it always worked really well. It was full of these beautiful lessons about family and love and sacrifice. And it's interesting because for the first, I'd say like 70% of the book, you're really only getting story in these interactions and you're sort of inferring these things from what's happening. But for the last like 30%, you see these beautiful demonstrations of literally laying down their lives for one another, of characters doing everything they can because they love people and they're sacrificing for other people. And it sort of all comes to a head in this beautiful display at the end of the book that was so moving and just is kind of almost unexpected because the entire beginning of the book is just building to this point, and then when it comes and you see all these displays of this compassion and generosity and love and self-sacrifice, it almost catches you off guard, but it also makes sense because when you think back over the book and over all the choices each character made and over what other characters did for them and things like that, it comes together really well and ends really beautifully. You should definitely read this book if that sounds good to you. It's fantasy, like I said. It's really well written, this is one of my all-time favorites now. I love this book so much. I'm absolutely going to be rereading it all the time. It's so good. If you read it, let me know in the comments what you think and if you have anything to say about it. Because like I said, I didn't get into spoilers in this video, but I don't have anyone in my circle who's read it, so I haven't been able to like talk about it with people. So there's so many just amazing moments in this book that I absolutely loved. So if you read it, let me know what you think. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.